Thank you. Hello, everybody, and I hope that my keynote will impress. I'm glad that I'm here. I'm here for 2 minutes now. I've been 20 minutes ago at the university, so I have a quite tough schedule for this afternoon. Yes, my idea for the next 20 minutes is to share my experiences with you that I made with startups on the one hand side and with established companies on the other hand side. So it's called No Future Without Startups. What I will share with you is some experiences, an intro about myself so that you can understand what my background is. Then I will talk about the creation of innovation, where innovation in general is created and where revolutionary innovation is created. And I will then talk about reasons why it is exactly like what we can see. Then we go on with some further examples and finally with lessons learned. So, short intro about myself. I'm now for over 25 years in business. Half of the time I spent with startups, the other half of the time with established companies. My focus has always been B2C, internet, and now more and more is finance. And I've had, as a serial entrepreneur, many different positions. I was founder and CEO, for instance, of Scout24, which is probably the most successful German internet business. I'm actually a board member of 2 banks, of NZZ, which is the #1 newspaper in Switzerland. And I'm a business angel. I was a business angel of money bookers. At the moment, there is, for instance, ResearchGate and Better Marks, where I'm taking care of. Now, about the question where innovation is created. There is empirical research on that, and that says that about 50% of innovation is coming from the established companies, and the other 50% are coming from startups. There is a huge difference between the 2 types of innovation, and I will focus on that in the next couple of minutes. Because one kind of innovation is evolutionary, incremental, and the other kind of innovation is revolutionary. And we will take a look at where this is happening. A good example from my point of view for revolutionary innovation is the internet, a revolutionary industry in itself, which has changed so much in the last, say, 15 years. And I will, together with you, now look at the most popular websites in the world, which you all know: Facebook, Google, YouTube, Yahoo. And we'll take a look at how they were established. You all know Facebook. I must not talk about it for long. And you probably also know the background of Facebook, that it was created just 2004 by a very young man, Mark Zuckerberg, at that time 19 years old. And you also may know that the value of Facebook by now is $50 billion. You also know that it was twice as high 6 months ago, but now it's still a huge amount, $50 billion. Let's take a look at the second most popular website in the world, Google. It has a very similar scheme. It was also founded by students. These guys were a bit older. They were PhD students at Stanford, not at Harvard. Market cap as of today is $180 billion. And we can continue like this. Look at the third most popular website in the world, which is YouTube. And it was not created by students, but by employees of PayPal, 2005. 3 young people, by the way, one of them from my home country, Germany. And the valuation you cannot say because it's part of Google. The fourth most popular website still, although on the way down, is Yahoo. Very similar creation as a startup at a university by two young people. Market cap as of today, 18 billion US dollars. So the market cap of these four businesses, all created as startups, together is 250 billion US dollars. By the way, that is more than the total government debt of Greece. So imagine these companies were not created in Silicon Valley, but in Athens, then the problem of Greece would be much smaller. Or imagine that the next four startups would be created in Kiev, how good that would be for the Ukrainian society. So I could continue like this and talking about the fifth and sixth and seventh and so on, most popular company, and they are all created by startups. Do you have any idea at which position the first startup comes, which is created by an established company? Does anybody have an idea? It is at place 50. 49, the 49 most popular startups in the world were created, the 49 most popular websites were created by startups, while only on position 50 there is one which is coming from an established company from BBC, it's BBC Online. And wouldn't we have expected that all these established companies would have taken the internet in the 90s, all the media companies from the 90s, the retail companies, the IT technology companies? Why were not they those who were the winners in the internet, but why was it only startups? And a little remark on other markets. It's not only the internet where the structure is the very same. So when you, for instance, look at software, it was not IBM, it was Microsoft or SAP or Oracle that created new revolutionary softwares. And when you look at the car manufacturing, it's not the old car brands that create the new revolutionary ideas of electric vehicles. It's a small startup from the Silicon Valley again, from PayPal people, from one of the founders of PayPal, Tesla, that brings electric cars much further. And in pharmaceutics, it's the very same. Most big pharmaceutical companies have already outsourced research and development to startups because they somehow are better in creating revolutionary innovation. And why is that? So I've put together some reasons for that. Established companies are very good at classic management, at planning, realizing, controlling, and so on. So they do strategic planning, and they want to be somewhere in 3 years from now or so. The businesses that we talked about were not the result of strategic planning. They were, in many cases, the result of trial and error. Zuckerberg started something that was close to a social network, but it developed into what Facebook is now over time, and there were many changes of the business model over the first years. There is a very, very exciting study from the Silicon Valley. Why do startups fail? I don't know if you've seen that. You really, everybody who has to do with startups should know this. You can Google it. Why do startups fail? And that has seen, on analyzing more than 3,000 different startups, that the most successful startups have changed their business model at least once or twice until they got there where they produced their success. And that, of course, doesn't match with a strategic plan of an established business. The markets that were created, like the market of social networks, like the market of search engine in 1998, probably were not even on the minds of the managers of the established companies of those years. And look at that third point, for instance. Facebook, in the third year of its existence, under then 25-year or 22-year-old Zuckerberg, created a loss of how much was it? 138 million US dollars. So imagine you would have had Facebook as a part of your established company and would have produced, under the guidance of a 22-year-old, a loss of 138 million. As a CEO, you would have had a lot of questions from your investors and from press and everywhere. So the best way to finance startups, as you all know, is venture capital. A startup can hardly be financed within an established companies. And within established companies, what I have seen in my experience, there is a reflex that as soon as it's possible to get profit out of the startup, the established company will turn into the profitability and try to get as much short-term profit out of this business as possible. What are the success principles of established companies? An established company has lots of customers. Some of them have millions of customers. And to succeed in the market, it is the most important point to fulfill the expectations of the existing customers. It is not about being very creative, changing a lot. It's about fulfilling every day the expectations of the customers. Perhaps every day a little better, but you have to take care of the needs of the customers. The valuation of an established company is the result, more or less, of existing profits, and not of the profit in 10 years, but of the profit of now and the next months and quarters. And within established companies, the best people that the business has will take care of the existing business, of the profitable business, and it is hard to imagine that a Fortune 500 company will take the whole management board to look after a startup, which is, of course, very risky and nobody knows what's coming out of it. So the main success principles for established companies is to avoid risk and to get better step by step. So incremental innovation is the success principle for established companies. And now when we look at success principles of startups, if you have no innovation, if you are not able to do things better than the existing companies on the market, there is no need to create a new business. It is tough enough to get customers for your business, and only if you make things better than what is there on the market, you should create a startup. And when you try to get financing from a VC, of course, he will look at how big the chance is to innovate markets, how big the chance is to have big profits in, let's say, 10 years from now. If you are not able to have a huge innovation, it will be tough to get money from venture capitalists. So further on, a startup has nothing. They have no clients. They have no reputation. So there is also more or less nothing to lose in the beginning. And the mode is to attack the established competitors. From CEO to web designer, everybody is in the mode of conquering markets and focusing on long-term growth. So the two main principles for a startup is to take risk, to live with trial and error, and to bring revolutionary improvements to the markets. I have put together two examples from my own life. So the company that I founded 14 years ago together with a friend, that is Scout24. The business model is, it's an online marketplace, the biggest online marketplace in Germany, classifieds online. It was, again, created as a startup. You see, we were like 10 years too old, so we didn't make it to 100 billion valuation. We also didn't start in Silicon Valley, but it at least is creating annual profits of over 100 million, so that's still remarkable in the German market. By now, there are no more printed classifieds. The classifieds totally moved away from the printed newspapers into the online markets, and my company has more than 1 million homes, more than 2 million cars, more than 10 million singles on the database. And there is this saying of the winner who's taking all, and Scout24 is such a case in those markets. So why did, in this case, the startup win, and why didn't the established newspaper companies win, who've been in the market for 100 years and who have had their customers for 100 years, and why did they lose their customers in the field of classifieds? So in the beginning, they were very self-assured about their market position, and they couldn't believe that a startup could take away the market from them. Secondly, as I said before, the top management of the established newspapers was captured by the daily business and had no time to look on the things on the horizon in the future. There was a huge lack of innovation in this market. In 1998, a client for a classified ad who had the data on his database had to print it out, to fax it to the newspaper. The newspaper would take the fax and then write it to be published in the newspaper, while we allowed at the first market participants, by clicking on the car or home or whatever in the database, to feed it into our database, which of course is the most sensible way to do it. The next very important point that happens again and again is that the established companies were not willing to cannibalize their profitable business, because printing classifieds was responsible for about 10% of the profits of a newspaper at that time, and they were not willing to cannibalize that. They were also not willing to cooperate with print competitors. We were a national and then international company, while the newspapers were all regional players. So if they would have wanted to attack us, they had to build partnerships over the regions, but they were unable to do so. Another example, which is now the most promising company in my portfolio, is ResearchGate. It's a network for researchers, not a social network, but a collaboration network. It has grown very nicely. Again, the setup is very similar. Started as a startup by a young student, this time from Harvard, by the way, born in Germany, and as of today is the world market leader with over 2 million scientists who work together. And what will be revolutionized by this business is the huge market of publishing academic articles. It's a multi-billion market, and it's still in print, but within these years it will go to the internet, which is of course much more comfortable for people to search and things like that. Again, why did here the startup win and not the established companies? At the established companies there was not enough focus on online networks. Again, the management was focused on the daily business and not on the future. The best managers were captured by running daily business. Again, lack of will to cannibalize the very profitable print business, and lack of will to cooperate. So what are my learnings from all of this for you? Startups are responsible for half of all innovations, and they are creating fantastic values out of this. You can hardly be too young to start a revolutionary business. When you start a revolutionary business, the good thing is that established companies will not be your competitors, only potentially other startups who do the same. You must not come from the Silicon Valley to create world market leaders. ResearchGate, for instance, is located in Berlin, but it's good to have Silicon Valley funding. That is always helpful. Now, as my last seconds are running, I want to come back to the title, No Future Without Startups. Of course, that is not true. There will be a future without startup, but from my point of view, a much less brighter one. So I would hope that my speech has inspired you to be ambitious and revolutionary and creative, to start businesses that will innovate your societies. Thank you very much.